Paul from Alexander Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving. I wanted to do a little update, maybe a bit of an addendum to rock engraving. So the other week I showed some memorial rocks that I had done for my uncle, and I had, in a few months back, I'll show you the box. Let me spin around here. I bought a whole box of river rocks to do these because I thought this was a really cool idea and I thought they would be popular. And the first time I posted the pictures of the ones I did, I got an order for some. And then I think I told you guys also about the first time I was practicing making them. It just so happened that the very same day I actually had a client come in with their own rock that wanted it engraved, and I did that rock engraving. Now, I followed another influencer out there. I forget who it was, but someone had talked about doing these, and he gave some settings for them. And he also talked about how you could fill them with powder coating. He gave some settings for melting the powder coating, and if you saw his video, it didn't actually work out too well. He had some success, but he didn't have really great success. And I have, since seeing that, tried this a couple times, and I've seen even other videos and other things that people recommend, and I decided to try my own recommendation, which I'm testing right now, and I'm going to show you what that is. And I also wanted to just talk to you a little bit more in depth about doing this. The first thing that I noticed was that you will occasionally get a rock that you think isn't going to engrave really well. You can see here, you can't really see this engraving all that great. It was really light, and this was using the recommended settings that this other influencer had used that worked well on some rocks. And I will say this, there were some rocks that I did that those settings actually worked really well for. But the other thing I ran into is there were some rocks that I did that they actually really didn't even make a dent in it. Like, they just barely started to scratch the surface. And I'm just putting a little more light on these over here to get a little better light for you. Let me show you this again. But you can see here, like, this one's just, you can barely read it. You can see it is engraved well, but it just didn't look as beautiful as some of the other ones. And I'll put some of the other ones I did in here so you can see pictures of those. But he had mentioned, hey, the other thing you can do is you can fill these with powder coat, and powder coat's really easy to get. Then what he did was he used the fiber laser on this, and then he used the blue laser to melt the powder coat in here. And it didn't really work out great in the video he's done. And I've seen other people talk about this before too. I have tried it on other items, and it's kind of a hit or miss thing, but I think like we're just overcomplicating this. And then I've also seen people say, oh, just use a heat gun. Well, I've tried that too, and I have a really great heat gun. I have a little Wagner heat gun that has a really small surface area where it can hit. And this is a fantastic heat gun. And I tried this, and I don't find that to be useful either. The heat gun basically blows all the powder out. That doesn't work well. So you basically, maybe you get lucky and you get a little bit of it that stays in there and melts. But I just think we're like way over complicating this, because the easiest part of powder coating stuff is when you go to melt the powder coat. So you basically just throw it in an oven and you put it in there at 450 degrees until it's what's called flow out. And what happens is the powder coating starts to look wet. And when you see that, then you drop the temperature to around 350 and let it run for 20 minutes. But the nice thing about that is that you get this beautiful smooth finish of powder coating, because that's the way powder coat was made to work. It's supposed to be flowed out at a high temperature and then baked for about 20 more minutes. And then that really sets that powder coating well. and permanent and makes it super strong. And it's just an amazing coating. The problem with, using a heat gun is you're not going to sit there and hold it for 20 minutes either. You can probably get the 450, but even then you still you want to leave it, you want to let it flow out for a pretty good period of time. And it usually takes about 10 minutes for flow out to even start. So once you put it into that 400, it doesn't happen like instantaneously. It takes a few minutes before you notice that kind of wet look to it. What I want to do is I want to show you just a couple things that I realized that you can do if you run into a difficult rock. So here's one that I just made the other day, and you can see this one looks great. And this was one of those rocks that when I did it on the pretty much kind of recommended normal settings. So here's the general settings for most rocks that I found to be very good. And like I said, a different influencer had did a video on this. It's 100% power at 400 speed, 10 passes at 260 lines per centimeter, and that is using the fiber laser. The ones that I did that were like brown or lighter colors worked great. So even something like this one's kind of got a green kind of hint to it. This might be fantastic. Where I ran into difficulty was really dark rocks, these dark gray, like this one, which is kind of speckled, but with a lot of gray in there. But you can see I had no problem in engraving this one here. But what I did was I just went max power. So when I ran into a rock that was like, oh, it did 10 passes and you couldn't see it, or you could just barely see it, I went to 100% power, 300 lines per centimeter. And this one, I actually did about 30 passes. But you can look at that flag. I mean, you can't miss that flag. I really carved in there. You can see everything else. I do have a date, some dates of birth down here that they're a little difficult to see, but they're in there. They're carved well. And the name up here is great. Once again, this is my uncle. What I want to do with this is I do want to fill it with powder coat. Do what you would normally do with powder coating, which is put it in an oven. So if you take a peek over across the shop over there, this is my powder coating oven that I have. Now, if you are only going to do little things like rocks, something like that, you won't need a very big oven. You can use a very small oven. I got, this is the largest. Now, one of the things with powder coating, the hardest part to get powder coating is a powder coating oven. So here's the problem. And I was powder coating for years. I've powder coated lots of products and parts and all kinds of different things. The hardest thing to find is a big oven. Now, some people will if they see a house throwing out an old electric oven, that's one way to get a pretty decent size oven. Some guys build their own ovens, but there really isn't a great market out there for like a hobby size oven. You basically have to kind of buy, like you see over here, tabletop, countertop, toaster oven to do it. This is my second brand, or Oster brand, I guess it is, I've owned for powder coating. Now here's the thing. If you're gonna powder coat, don't do this in your home kitchen. Don't do it in your home oven. Powder coating is meant to be done in an oven that's only going to be used for powder coating. It's not something you want getting mixed in with your food or anything. You want a dedicated oven that is specifically just for that. Keep in mind, you don't need a great oven. It could be a little teeny tiny, toaster oven, as long as it goes to 450 degrees. And that's the thing, you might have to search for some, because a lot of them kind of only go to 400. Now, I will tell you this, the powder coat's probably still going to melt at 400. I've found that most of them do. The recommended flow out is usually 450, but they'll flow out usually at 400. Here's the thing, you can get great deals on you can even buy them at a yard sale. The one I have over here is pretty big for a countertop one. It's got French doors, which I also like because both sides open, makes it real easy to put a piece in there. And I got this super cheap because what I did was I went to Amazon Renewed. So if you don't know what Amazon Renewed is, it's items that might have been damaged or broken that they fixed, and they usually sell at a discount. And this oven over here, this French door countertop oven, was normally like $300, and I think I got it for $100. I've had it for probably about a year and a half. My other one that I had for years finally stopped working after hundreds and hundreds of things powder coated in it. And it was actually still working, but what went bad on me was the display. So I couldn't see the numbers anymore, which made it hard to set things. Then I saw this one and I decided, you know what? I'm gonna get that one. It's even bigger. It's the same brand. I like this brand. They do have like a convection option in there. It does go to 450 degrees. You can set timers on it, but basically any old oven that you want to dedicate to be a powder coated oven could work. You know, that could be something you could simply, you know, if you just want to do memorial rocks like this, which, you know, I powder coat other things, so that's why I got the bigger oven, but just get a little teeny tiny toaster oven and you'll be good to go. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I've never used this particular powder coat before. I've had it for years, but it's white, not super common. You see a lot of things powder coated. Most of the time they're black or different blacks or really cool metallics, and there's lots of really fancy colors. I just want some basic colors. So I grabbed one of my go-tos, which was a satin black I used a lot. I also like textured black was one that I really love, but they have some like really shiny blacks. They have so many blacks. It's almost mind-blowing the amount of blacks that you can get. And what I'm gonna do here is simply just brush it onto here, and then I'm gonna put it in the oven. I figured we'd do two. I'm gonna do the one for my uncle in black, and this was a copy of one that I made for a message from his wife, but I'm gonna do that in white. Let's see how they come out. Basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the caps here, if I can, to capture the excess powder coat. And I just need a dry brush. And here's a dry brush. And this one has been used for blacks before, so I'm gonna try and not contaminate it, the one for whites. So I'm probably I'll grab a new brush here. This is just a dry paint brush. And I'll just keep these, if everything works out well, I'll just keep these separated and have one that will be dedicated to the white powder and one dedicated to the black powder. Powder coating powder is a little bit like toner. It's really easy to clean up if you do get it around, but it's super light powder. What happens is there's normally an electrostatic charge put through the piece that you're powder coating, and they're not always metal, but typically they are metal. And then it's sprayed, and because of the electrical charge, the powder just sticks to it. But we're not going to be able to do that here, so we're going to have to, our goal is just to brush it into the crevices where we cut out the engravings. So let's try the white one first. So I'm going to take a little bit of powder here, and kind of put it on the top, and then I'm going to start brushing this and get it into the engraving. Now, the other thing you have to keep in mind is we're going to want as little of it anywhere else on here. So I've had a couple thoughts on, you know, what would be the best way to do that, because we're going to want to get the excess off, and any excess that's on here once it bakes is going to be challenging to get off, because like I said, it's harder than spray paint. It's about 10 times harder than spray paint. But once we get it into these crevices, I think we'll be good. And then I think what we can do is kind of just do like this and brush it off pretty well. But you can see, you can see how it's there. But as much as we could clean off is going to be good. But yeah, I was a little concerned that we might get like we're seeing here. So we're seeing a lot. So I'm keeping my brush, if you notice here, keeping my brush very flat so that I'm not pulling it out of the engraving, because I want it to stay in those letters. Now, I had a couple thoughts here. We could take something wet and kind of wipe it. I also thought maybe we could blow it with a little blower. I don't know if that'll work, but we don't want to blow it out of the holes. So this would have to be very low. Yeah, and again, we'd want it kind of sideways. Yeah. And I don't think that's going to work. So I think the best option might be a very light, wet paper towel. I'm just going to put a little cleaner. You could probably use water, be fine too, but I just want a moist, kind of wet, I want a little more wet paper towel. And I want to see if I can wipe this off without getting what's in the cracks. And that's working pretty good. So what I'm doing is I'm just lightly going right over top of the engraving, brushing off that excess. And as long as I don't knock it out of my engraving, I should be pretty good. And you can, afterwards, you can polish up the stone a little bit easily. As you guys know, I like to use dental radial discs for lots of things. Yeah, look at that. So that looks good to me, right? You guys can see that. It's in the letters really well. We have a tiny bit here. Maybe this is where we could blow just a tiny bit of air. Might get that. I really don't want to blow them out of the letters though. So I'm not going to go crazy. Yeah, that's good. Another thing that might help here would be a Q-tip. Anything that you could just kind of lightly clean something off that you don't want. Yeah, that's good. I'm not even going to mess with that anymore. I'm really happy with how that is. All right, so let's try our black one. So here's our black one. And I'm just going to do the same process, except it's a different color. So here we go. So this is black powder coat. And again, I just want to make sure I get it in those letters. And you can get powder coat in pretty small pint size containers. So you don't have to get a big giant one like this. And I have even seen guys that were selling smaller sizes of them. So I also think if the more careful we are with it and trying to get it only in the areas that we really want it, the better we'll be too. So if I kind of stick to making sure I don't get it too much all over the stone in areas I don't need it to be, if I can avoid some, that'll make the cleaning process easier also. Keep your brush flat as you go over the letters so that the powder coat kind of gets in there nice and even, and then just take it off. Take that excess off with your brush. And just be careful not to do too much with your brush because you don't want to start pulling it out. And I'm going to do my paper towel trick again here in a second. All right, wet paper towel and just wipe right across to clean off any excess. All right, and I'm feeling pretty good about this one now too. I really like the white, and that one's really popping. You can't miss that at all. But this is easier to be seen now too, and we'll see how good it comes out with the powder coat once it melts. So now I'm just going to grab a heat resistant glove, and we're going to go over to our oven and get ready for these for flow out. All right, so I preheated this so it would be nice and hot, and I preheated it for 450, so this is already up to 450 degrees. It was running for about 20 minutes. It's actually about to shut off here in a second, but that's fine because we're going to put these in, and then we are going to restart it again for a new 20 minutes. I'm going to put these right here in the front so you can see them. Here's our white. I really love that white color. I think that one's going to be popular. All right, and I'll probably do a time lapse on this. All right, so I'm just going to stop this. So my oven just ended, so I'm going to go back. I'm putting it on bake again. My temperature is still 450. My time going to be about 10 minutes for flow out. All right, we're underway. Set my Apple Watch for 10 minutes, and that's typically the time it takes for flow out to start. What we should see is it should look a little shiny. It might be a little hard to see on a rock, but we'll just let that go. And then after 10 minutes, then we'll lower it to 350 for 20 minutes. Okay, so our 10-minute time for flow out has just about ended. There goes my watch. And it looks to me like we've definitely, I can tell on the white that it did flow out. And the black looks very, very good to me. The white powder coat looking not fantastic to me, but I do want to say this. I don't remember where I got it from. I almost always get all of my powder coats from a company called Eastwood, who makes all kinds of stuff for powder coating, but their powder coats are fantastic. I never remember seeing white with them, and I remember when I saw the white, I bought it because I almost never see white. I thought that was really cool. They might have white. It's been years since I have bought powder coat because I have a big supplies of it. I used to buy it, and as you can see, they're really big jugs, so I have quite a bit of it. Well, the only thing I don't like that I'm seeing here with the white, I saw a couple little like bubbles here in that E on the end. Now I don't know if there was a little too much powder coat in there that I didn't get out, but typically I never have any issues with Eastwood powder coating. It flows out, it's beautiful, and it's done. I don't know. We'll see how this comes out in the end. It still looks great, but I'm thinking that I might want to reach out and see if Eastwood actually has white, because I think this might just be a cheap, not great powder coat. And it's also probably quite a few years old. I've had it for a long time and I have not ever used it. This was actually the first time I ever used the white powder coat. Everything looks good here. I'm going to change this now to a lower temperature. We're going to go now to just finishing temperature, which is 350 for about 20 minutes. We're going to do 350, and that should do it for 20 minutes. All right, so we are on our final round now, which is kind of the baking part of the powder coating. Now I am noticing most of those bubbles are gone. It might just been a little dot of powder coat that was outside of the lettering. So we'll see. We'll see when it's done. We'll take a good look at it, at everything. All right, so here's the finished product, and they look pretty good. I do like the black quality of that powder coat better. The white is popping really well though. Without question, that white looks good. I just question the quality of this powder coat. I'm even going to show you guys it. It's is like generic. So this is the good stuff that I always buy. It's from Eastwood, the very best powder coat that I've used. And here's the white I was telling you about. It might even have came from like a Harbor. Oh, it did. Look at this. It did come from Harbor Freight. Yeah, and it's years old. Now it's not, it still looks to be fine. I've never had powder coat go bad. You know, it still looks good. I just question its overall quality, because what I'm seeing that I don't like is like down here in the Y there, I saw a little bubble, and I don't know why. I normally never see anything like that. When I do powder coat, it just melts and just flows. That's my only question there. But other than that, I mean, in general, without, and keep in mind, I'm super picky because I did do powder coating for a long time. In general, that looks great. I mean, I don't think anyone would complain at all if they did this and wanted white lettering too much about that. But I think what I'm gonna look to is to see if Eastwood makes a white powder coat and try what I know would be a better quality of powder coat. And then what I do want to try also, I want to try some of my other colors of powder coat that I have to see how they work on rocks. I think this is the best method. I think if you're going to fill it with powder coat to get that engraving to pop a little bit more, your best bet's to put it in an oven. Don't try hitting it with a heat gun. You're going to get frustrated, and it basically blows the powder coating out of the engraving. And if you get a little bit, if you get lucky and a little stays in there, but I've tried it several times, it just doesn't work. And I haven't found it to be super successful using the blue laser to melt the powder coat either. And I did try that on the white powder coat before, and it actually burned it. So it didn't even come out white. It came out like this ugly, like yellowy brown. May not matter so much on a black powder coat, but on a white powder coat, absolutely did not work at all. You're way better melting that. But the one thing I will check to see is if Eastwood makes a white powder coat. Because if they do, I definitely want to try that because they have very high quality powder coats. All right, so I took the time to run over and check out Eastwood powder coating and see what their current stuff is. And I'm really happy to report on a few things that I saw. One, there's lots of options for white powder coat, which is great. They are now also offering a dedicated powder coating oven that's affordable for small shops and hobbyists, which they didn't do for years, and it's really nice to see that they're finally doing that. I'm showing you guys some pictures of scissors. I used to refurbish old scissors and offered it as a service, and I charged around $25-$30 to repowder coat a pair of scissors. This is an easy thing to do. It's something you could add if you are interested in scissor sharpening, knife sharpening, and you will get other requests to do things like car parts and things that will come in. I do plan to add that service back in. The reason I stopped doing it was basically space in my old shop. But now that I've moved to my new shop and I have a lot more space, I am going to bring back my powder coating service probably this summer. I will leave a link to the Eastwood powder coating site in the description of the YouTube video in case you're interested in picking up some powder coating powders or powder coating tools. And to my sharpeners out there who listened to my recent podcast, one of the things I talked about was separating yourselves from the other businesses out there. I did this by laser engraving, but powder coating is another thing that you can do that probably nobody in your area will be offering. And it's a relatively inexpensive startup to offer powder coating services. Have a great day, everybody.